All right, Mr. Chair, our YouTube stream is live, so when you'd like to, if you'd like to start.
Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. Before I get into the intro remarks, I would just like to introduce myself. I'm Stan Komoric. I'll be chairing this afternoon. My fellow panel members, thank you, Adam. Hey, people can see me now. I don't want to be seen.
Last one there.
Okay, on my left, my far left is Natalia Popovic. On my near left is Laura Alderson. On my far right is Bill Dalton. And on my near right is Rick Ross. Those are my fellow committee panel members. I'd also like to introduce our Deputy Secretary Treasurer, Barbara Petorzik, who's at the far end of the podium there, and Barb's staff, who will be helping us with the meeting this afternoon. So in terms of getting this party started, here we go. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property or to create new lots. Our land acknowledgement, we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In terms of our procedure this afternoon, the Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid and in-person virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, others will do it virtually through electronic means known as WebEx. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. All other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission guidelines. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or other panelist controls during the video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect these instructions. Decisions. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, as the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal your decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or, in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the Province of Ontario amended the Planning Act and generally removed third-party rights of appeal of Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and specified persons and bodies are now permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Our procedure for this afternoon, I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. When you're making your submissions, where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching your 5-minute mark. Any presentations or other materials you wish to submit to the committee should have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials this afternoon. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposal at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised in order to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals, either in support or opposition of the application, will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentations. When all speakers are finished, the applicant and/or agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the previous speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Okay, so in terms of our agenda, we've done the minutes in the morning, so now we're looking at conflicts of interest. Does any members of the committee or staff have any conflicts or any interest to declare on any items this afternoon? Seeing none, we'll move on. I believe there are no closed files or no active deferrals requested. No, okay. Before we proceed to the top of the agenda, we'll be starting with item 18 this afternoon, but before we get there, I want to clarify two of the items on the afternoon session. Item 22 and item 24, or I guess it's items 24 through 26. So I'd like first to speak with the applicant for item 22. So this is 27 Cronin Drive. And David Engelman. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're the applicant or the agent for the other one as well, right? For 24?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is 6 BIRCHLEA Avenue?
That is, yes, it is. Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
great. So we've got you here. So we're gonna, I want to clarify the purpose that's been outlined and determine whether we may have a notice issue. Okay, so the application is for consent to sever the lot into 2 residential lots, but then you've revised the purpose to sever into 2 duplexes.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, and for the record, David Eagleman, 900 the East Small Suite 300. I appreciate staff assisting and bringing this to my attention. The public notice for 27 Cronin it noted the description of the proposal as a single detached dwelling. It is in fact a duplex because there's a unit in the basement. No variances pertain to the fact that it's a duplex, and on that basis, I'm of the opinion that it is not a notice issue. We also did provide materials in advance of the hearing today which indicate it as a duplex, and in the case of 27 Cronin, committee staff did provide updated notice signs, albeit past the deadline to post notice, but we did post updated notice signs indicating the proposal as a duplex. But on the basis that none of the variances pertain to this being a duplex, and also the fact that a duplex is permitted as of right, whether it's considered a duplex or a secondary suite within the dwelling.
Okay, can you explain then why all of your drawings show a single-family dwelling with basically no second unit on any of the drawings?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the basement unit is shown on the floor plans.
It's shown as a rec room and as a ancillary uses to the main dwelling above.
Mr. Chair and Agent Engelman,
Can you
For,
pull up the,
yes, for 27 Cronin, you have in the plans the single-family detached dwelling. New plans were submitted, but they were not in your package showing.
so we've never seen them?
Correct.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe those plans were submitted well in advance of the material submission deadline, even prior to notice being issued for today's hearing. So
That is correct, and they are on the AIC, the new plans, but they were not in your
Okay.
package.
Or in the added material package?
Correct.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of confusion there. Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's still a question of whether the public got notice of it being two duplexes or two single-family dwellings. That's still the issue for me. I don't know if anyone else has any questions or comments.
So, Mr. Engelmann, your position is because no variance is involved with respect to it being a duplex or not, that we can proceed, is that?
yes, through you, Mr. Chair, that is my position. And on top of that, if the committee were to approve it as single detached dwellings, you could construct a basement unit as of right after the fact. So it wouldn't really relate to the application that is in front of the committee today.
You could, but you'd then be subject to FSI restrictions as a single-family dwelling.
On the basis of 27 Cronin, we are subject to an FSI variance because it's in an exception zone,
Okay,
which the multiplex amendment did not override.
so we're considering that anyway.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, sorry. I'd actually like staff to weigh in on this.
So we're only dealing with Cronin right now, correct? So the notice that went out did not identify it as a duplex. The application form labeled it as a single-family dwelling. However, the site plan that went out with the notice did show the duplex, and we do have those plans on file. And the cover letter that you have in your package, both of them do refer to this as a duplex. So the only problem is the application form didn't correctly reflect the proposal, which is why the notice was stated incorrectly. And if the variances are the same regardless, it's up to the committee how they choose to deal with it.
Mr. Chair, I suggest that if we as a group are having a little bit of confusion, it's entirely possible the public might as well. So I go back to the overarching issue of notice that is clear and puts the public and the neighbors on notice of what is in question. So that remains a concern for me.
But on that point, Barb, didn't you just say that the notice included the revised plans, noting it as a duplex?
Yes, so the plans that went out for Cronin did show a duplex.
The plans or the
The,
notice?
pl- the site
The
plan? or-
the plan.
So, yeah, the plan appended to the public notice showed duplex,
Yes.
but we just didn't get the drawings showing duplex.
For some reason, the wrong set of, I guess the problem is there's multiple revisions.
Yep.
So the wrong set of plans was unfortunately included in your package.
Okay,
The revised set of plans is on file
right,
and do show the duplexes.
right. And the six variances for each, you're correct, they don't have anything to do with the other unit because the other unit is permitted as of right, so.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think it's a notice issue. I mean, it'd be nice to see the plans, being a member of the committee.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see what we're deciding on.
So then in terms of the plans that we do have, can someone haul up the basement plan?
Well, those can be shared, and I would suggest we not do that unless we decide to proceed with this item, and then we'll do it in due course through the agenda. But we do have them, and they can be shared with us if we proceed with this item. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
Good.
So that's the context of it.
And then just to complete the loop, then there's no comment then from city staff addressing the matter of duplex. Like no one has raised it as a concern, so.
Well, the duplexes has a right in this area, correct?
Exactly.
Well, a secondary suite is as, well, I guess duplex is as well, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So,
Well, a dwelling with a secondary suite is not the same as a duplex.
yeah, but that's what we're trying to figure out here, is what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a duplex or a secondary suite?
Yeah.
You're saying we're dealing with a duplex.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it is a duplex. Because of the multiplex amendment, there is practically no difference between a secondary suite, a single detached dwelling in a secondary suite and a duplex. A single with a
Well-
secondary is now subject to,
But in my mind, a duplex has separate meters, has separate services, because they're two separate units.
there may be different services, but it still functions as one property. So
I understand that. I understand that. But to me, the difference between a duplex and a secondary suite is a secondary suite is still part of one dwelling, whereas a duplex, you have two hydrometers, for example. You may have two gas meters. You may have two furnaces.
Through you, Mr. Chair, from a zoning perspective, because of the multiplex amendment, there is, you can now effectively choose whether you want to be considered a duplex or single with a secondary suite if you have two units in a single detached house. And really, it doesn't really make sense to say you're a single with a secondary suite, because then you'd be subject to more,
Well, I think that's a problem with the way that the bylaws are currently constructed, but that's a topic for a different issue, or an issue for a different time. Okay, so that's what we have. I guess at this point, we're just deciding whether we want to defer, whether we want to proceed with this item. I leave it up to committee to motion either way, unless you guys have anything else to discuss.
I'm happy to hear the presentation.
What, if any, is the downside of hearing it this way?
through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Ross, you're asking if there is a downside of hearing it today?
Downside to him.
I don't think there is any downside. I think we're ready to proceed and that there is no notice issue.
I think I just want to be comfortable that we don't get any blowback from the public later that we did not inform that this is a proposal for two duplexes. And I guess that's where I'd like some guidance from staff. You're feeling okay with this, Barb, right?
If it's just a matter of changing the wording on the consent and the variance notice, I don't believe that's a notice issue. It doesn't change the variances based on what the applicant has advised. I will say their application form did not reflect this as a duplex.
Okay, so the error is on the applicant, not on staff.
Well, their information doesn't match.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I appreciate Madam Secretary Treasurer's comments. The proposal was revised to duplex after the application was submitted, and a new application form was not provided and not requested. So, but again, I did provide a cover letter addressing that it is a duplex, and I think the owners have consulted with a number of surrounding neighbors. I think it was very clear to all the neighbors that this is in fact for duplexes.
So you say, but the only way we can know for sure is what the notice reflected, but that's fine. Okay, how do we feel about this?
You want to take a vote?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like, just before we do that, I'd like to ask Madam Secretary, Treasurer, Deputy Secretary, Treasurer, are you comfortable with proceeding this without getting a new notice?
The variances wouldn't change. So you can make minor corrections to clarify purposes or intentions.
With the wording?
Yes.
Yeah, my only caution is that if you are resident within the notice area and, you receive an application for, and you have to appreciate that not, the entire public is not aware of the changes that have occurred at the city at this point. I think there's still a large proportion of the population that isn't aware that multiplexes are an as-of-right thing in Toronto. And just getting the correct notice could spark interest that may not be sparked if it's just set out as a single-family dwelling. That's my only concern and caution.
But just to close the loop again on it, Madam Secretary, the notice that went out to the public, did it state single family or did it state duplex? Or did it just show?
Single-family.
Single family.
So it said single family but had the attached site plan showing a duplex?
So the notices both referenced a new detached dwelling with an integral garage.
So yeah, it's a vague, yeah.
But then the site plan showed a duplex.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you in committee?
I think so at this point, thank you.
Okay.
But don't go away because we need you for the next one. Okay. I think we need to make a decision on it. I mean, either we hear it today or we don't.
To be overly cautious, I think it could be deemed to be a notice issue, given
That was my concern. That's why,
consistency of text
Yeah.
versus drawing.
that was my concern. That was why I flagged it. I don't know what your,
Yep.
what your collective opinions are on it, so
Well, I could see some blowback happening.
Yeah.
So on that, I'd move a motion to defer.
Yep.
Because I think there is a notice issue. Just, again, for belt and suspenders and to be completely cautious about it.
I agree with that. I would second that motion. I think we have a public optics, public perception, potential issue, and we don't want blowback on that.
okay. I mean, I understand the argument on both sides, so I think personally I could go either way, but I get it. I get it. So that's the motion. That's on the floor.
And that's been seconded?
It's been seconded.
All in favor?
Okay, so we're going to defer it. Let's get all the paperwork in order next time. And we have the same issue essentially on items, I'm not even sure what item to call that.
Virtually. 24, 25.
24, 25, and 26.
So for this one, it is slightly different. None of the application materials reference this as a duplex. The application form and the plans refer to this as a single-family dwelling.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, if I may make a correction, firstly, the notice in this case refers to the proposed dwellings as single-family dwellings with secondary suites. So it is a little bit different than the previous application. And so in that case, whether a member of the public had any issues with 2 units being proposed or not would have been an issue, whether it was called a duplex or a single with a secondary suite. And it was, while the plans are not very clear in that respect, I did provide a cover letter back in February when this application was previously deferred, indicating this as a duplex. And I also provided an updated cover letter for this hearing a couple weeks ago, prior to the submission deadline, indicating these as duplexes. So I think
Well, I looked in the February letter, I didn't see any reference to a duplex. The problem is your plans do not show a duplex. And as you mentioned on the previous one, the variances didn't change, whether it was a duplex or a single family with a secondary suite, because of the exception in the bylaw. In this case, there is a difference, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no difference to the variances in this case as well,
I
because
thought you said that a duplex is exempt from FSI, whereas a single-family dwelling with a secondary suite is still subject to FSI. There's no exception in this case, correct?
there is no exception in this case, but if we revise the notice to indicate these as a duplex, then the variances would stay the same because we would still not have an FSI variance.
Because it's considered a duplex.
But if it was a single family with a secondary suite, you would have to consider FSI on this application, would you not?
That is my understanding.
Right, so if your notice is as stated, to construct new detached dwellings with an attached garage and a secondary suite, if that is the purpose of your application, then you are missing variances, are you not?
Correct, Mr. Chair, through you. However, we are proposing duplexes.
Right, but that's not the notice that you sent out.
And the plans do not label this in any way or your application form as a duplex.
Understood. I do believe I double-checked the February cover letter, and it did refer.
But the cover letter doesn't go out to the neighbors. They don't necessarily open your cover letter. They may look at the application form and they'll definitely look at the plans. The plans are very clear. They don't show a duplex. There's no labeling of that in any way. And that's why I think this is different than the Cronin one. And there was already concern for the Cronin one.
Understood. Through you, Mr. Chair, I think while perhaps labeling on the plans is not clear, I think it is clear that there is a unit in the basement. And on that basis, it's clear again that there are 2 units in each of the new dwellings. And I wanted to mention this in respect to 27 Cronin, but it applies here as well, in that if any neighbors had any concerns with the fact that there's a 2 units proposed and this is considered a duplex, that concern wouldn't be within the purview of the committee because, again, no variances relate specifically to the fact that a duplex is proposed.
No, understood, but we're looking at it from a public perception perspective. And, you know, if you don't like the fact that there's 4 units instead of 2 units, you're going to find reasons for those variances not to comply, whether they do or they don't. And by couching it this way, we're denying the public that option potentially by trying to disguise it as something that it's not. That's the way I see it. The Cronin one, I could have gone either way. This one, I have a problem with. I don't know how my fellow members feel, but that's my position.
I also have a problem with this one as well.
I agree as well.
Motion to refuse?
No, motion to defer.
To defer.
We're not, I mean, if you want to deal with the merits, then we don't defer and we deal with the merits. That's the other
Okay,
option.
sorry, motion to defer. Motion to defer is what I meant.
And I think you're probably better off with the deferral than
Yes,
if we went through with
so.
this today. A seconder? Okay. All in favor? Item is deferred. Thank you, sir.
And in both instances, we need revised materials that match in all cases before we can schedule them for a hearing date.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's just a given for everybody coming before this committee. But we're not going to get into that now. Thank you.
They can take it outside, though.
Yeah, you can discuss it out there by all means. Okay, let me get reorganized. We'll go back to the top of the agenda.
So, Mr. Chair, items 18 and 19 can be considered together.
'18, '19, 20, 21. Okay. And I don't need that.
So we're on 20 now.
No.
Back to the top
we're-
of the
we're
list.
back to
Item
18.
18 and 19.
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we'd like to consider 18 and 19 together. So 18 and 19 are the next item. This is a 56A East Drive, and this is an application for consent for 2 new semi-detached fourplexes. There are 5 variances being requested. Forestry is requesting denial. But I also have seen a forestry clearance letter on file, so I'm confused, and maybe Mr. Engelman can enlighten me on that. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good afternoon again. David Eagleman, 900 The East Mall, Suite 300, associate at Design Plan Services, Inc. And through you, Mr. Chair, to provide clarification on that issue, and just to clarify the proposal as well in this case, there is no consent proposed. The consent was previously approved. So now it was, and that previous approval was for a semi-detached dwelling on the subject property. We are now proposing to convert the semi-detached dwelling. So each semi-detached unit will now be a fourplex dwelling. So there will be 4 units in each half of the semi-detached dwelling.
For a total of 8.
Correct, Mr. Chair. And
Is a fourplex a permitted use in a semi, or does it have to be a detached?
through you, Mr. Chair, it is permitted as a semi-building because the lots are considered on their own. So regardless of whether the
No, I
buildings...
understand, but under the old duplex rules, that wasn't the case, but so I'm trying to get caught up.
So there is a common wall?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, there is.
Okay, anyway, sorry, we digress. Let's get into the application. If you could do a presentation for us, please.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you, Mr. Chair, I will note in this case as well, I did provide a detailed planning justification letter for the committee's consideration, which addresses the proposal and requested variances. So I'll focus the presentation on the comments from Urban Forestry. And before getting into that, I will note that we have consulted with planning staff and have made revisions to the proposal to their satisfaction. They did provide some correspondence indicating no objections to the proposal, and that is on the public record. And at this point in time, I'm not aware of any concerns or objections from any city departments or any surrounding neighbors regarding this application, save and except for Urban Forestry.
We do have a speaker wanting to address the issue, so we don't know if they're in support or...
If we may, Mr. Chair, our list has a speaker, Marcus Nelson at 54 East Drive. They are not present on the call at this time. But with that being said, there is a area resident present in chambers who would like to speak.
Okay,
So thank you.
so I think you might want to finish your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I stand corrected. At this point in time now, I am aware of some neighbors who want to speak to this. However, regarding Urban Forestry's recommendation, they speak to variance number 3 and number 5 for part 1 and part 2 respectively. And while I'm not an arborist, I'm not an expert in trees, I respectfully disagree with their assertions that those 2 variances relate to the removal of the tree in the rear yard. The 2 variances that they refer to in their objection letter relate to the encroachment of the rear balconies at the 2nd and 3rd story into the rear yard setback, as well as the side yard setback of the proposed rear 3-story staircase. And in the case of the side yard setback for the rear 3-story staircase, that variance is a result of the proposed severance that was previously granted. So if you were to construct a new fourplex and you were to consolidate these lots back into one single lot, you could construct the rear staircase in the same location that it's currently being proposed without any side yard setback variance for that rear staircase. And similarly, the variances pertaining to the second and third story balconies are also tied to the side yard setbacks of those balconies, which again are related to the proposed lot line that was created previously on the subject property. So in theory, if this lot remained as one single lot as it previously existed, you could build a brand new fourplex dwelling on the subject property with neither of these variances being requested. It would be permitted as of right, and it would still potentially result in the injury or removal of that tree. So on that basis, it is my opinion that that tree is unfortunately within the as of right building envelope, and that this proposal that is in front of the committee today doesn't necessarily relate to the injury or removal of that tree. And I think that really seems to use most of my time. So again, I did provide a detailed justification letter, and it is my opinion that this application meets the 4 tests under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act.
Thank you, sir. I'll get you to, thanks. There's someone else speak to this item, please come up.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Chair, actually, we do have the area resident. Come on up. I do see now, though, that the area resident that's virtual at 54 is online now, actually.
Okay,
So we'll get to them after, though.
wait, yeah.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself and then let us know your concerns.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First and foremost, my name is Luis Iturbe. I am the neighbor to the west to this lot. The house that is going to be demolished was the house that was the oldest.
Sorry, can we just get your address, please?
Sorry?
What's your street address?
My address. My address is there, 58 East Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. It's to the west of this previous lot.
Yep.
The house that is going to be demolished to build this fourplex was the oldest house in the block. And my house was built in 1955. We are concerned, and the reason I'm saying we is because I have had also conversations with the neighbor of 54 East Drive, who is also present via video. And I have a major concern. I'm not very knowledgeable of regulations. I'm not a big corporation. I'm simply a senior citizen who planned to live there my senior years.
Tell us what your concerns are.
My main concern is 3 concerns. 1, the proposed is the first variance, requested variance, that usually should be 1.2 meters from either side to each side of to the next lot, and it's proposed to be 0.93 meters. My concern is that my house was built and also had windows on that side. So if a building of this height and length is going to be built that in so close to my west side, to my east side, is going to completely block those windows, and that is very sad. Obviously, because I don't know what I will have to do with those windows. I don't know if I have to literally close them with bricks, or I don't know what will have to happen, because both in length and in height, these fourplex will completely oversize any other construction in the area. And last but not least, obviously, by building a fourplex there, obviously I would be concerned with potential damages that my foundation or that could have by having an excavation so close to my construction. But my main concern is twofold. The obviously blocking all the light and blocking all the air from those windows on the side, and also the potential damages that my property could have. Obviously, the density of the area and all the other situations that you may have envisioned as well. That is basically my concerns. And as I mentioned, I'm simply a senior citizen that wanted to live there my senior years, but it seems they will be obstructed, literally, in more than one way. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your attention.
Don't go away.
Okay, don't go away.
I have a question for you, and then maybe
Yes.
the members will as well. Do you know what your distance is from your house to your property line on that side?
It's very small. It is very small. It must be literally like a few centimeters. I would not be lying if it is not. It is very small. I don't know if it is like literally 30 centimeters or something. I don't.
So your setback is essentially 30 centimeters.
It's very little. It's very small. Very, very small.
So you can understand why your neighbor might want something similar.
I understand that, but the point is that those two houses were there for the longest time.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know what the current, we'll ask Mr. Eagleman what the current setback is, but, okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Anyone
much.
else have-
Thank you kindly. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Marcel is on the line as well?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Marcel is present, though we did not microphone check them earlier on because they weren't on earlier, so we'll give this a chance right now. Marcel Nelson, go ahead. Marcel?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Perfect.
Hey, welcome.
We've got you here. Now, Marcel, you've noted that you would potentially like to be on video for your presentation. Is that still the case?
It's on the fritz. I just do it vocally, if that's okay.
If you want to,
My
that's
video.
quite all right then. Okay, thank you. So we will not put him on video. So,
That's fine.
yep. Marcel, whenever you're ready.
You'll take my word for it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm at 54 East Drive, and yeah, it's basically the same point as my neighbor Lewis was making. It's not necessarily, we don't necessarily oppose the construction in principle. We do realize that it is important to increase the density of the city. It's just the scale of the variances that we find problematic. So, for example, if you look at variance number 4, pertaining to section 10.5.4.6 3A. So, for example, the proposed front porch steps will be located 0.29 from the front lot and 0 meters from the west side lot line. So that means that there's actually no distance between the construction and the property line. So again, it's just, just to reiterate, it's not opposing the construction per se. We understand that it is the mandate to increase the density of the city. Where our concern lies is with the scale of the variances being asked, and perhaps the impact it would have on our own ability to perhaps one day increase, if we were to, want to create more fourplexes in the neighborhood. Given that the fourplex that is being constructed, would it have an impact on our own ability to increase the density of the neighborhood? So those are our concerns. It's not necessarily the construction per se, but rather the scale of the variances. And I would like to thank you very much for your time. I'll end my comments there.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. If there's no one else, I'll ask David to come back.
That is it, Mr. Chair. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the neighbors' comments. In regards to the setbacks, the proposal is, while different, it is largely, in terms of the footprint, largely the same as what was previously approved by the committee. Specifically, the side yard setbacks are practically the same. And so those side yard setbacks were previously approved. And in respect of, again, the neighbor to the west, I can confirm his side yard setback is in fact 30 centimeters at its widest point. The existing setback on the west side of the subject property is actually less at 0.5 meters at its widest point. So this is actually an improvement to the existing condition. And while I understand he is concerned with construction on the property, again, there was an application already approved, so construction of the semi-detached dwellings can begin, a building permit can be obtained today for that construction. And while I understand, again, his concerns, I think this proposal is providing gradual and gentle intensification. And we're providing, in total, with both applications, we're providing 8 units in the city of Toronto. And I think that is desirable, and it is being done in an appropriate manner, largely, again, within the same, a very similar footprint and massing as compared to what was previously approved. And in reference to the other neighbor's concern about the scale of the variances, in my opinion, the scale of the variances are quite minor. The neighbor specifically pointed out the front porch stairs and the setback of those stairs. The side yard setback related to the front porch is the internal setback. So the setback between the two new fourplexes or semi-detached house. The front porches are compliant with the setbacks to both dwellings on either side. So, and in terms of the front porch stairs, I believe they extend slightly further into the front yard than what was previously proposed, but it's very similar, again, to what was previously proposed and approved. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Eagleman. Any questions from panel members?
Yeah, I have a question. We talked a lot about the exterior, not much about the interior. Do you know what the living space is for each unit?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will just pull up the statistics. So the first floor area is 87.59 square meters. I believe that would be in the realm. I'll just convert that to not make any. So that would be just under 1,000 square feet for the first floor. The second floor is slightly smaller than that, 80.20 square meters. And the third floor area is 40.67 square meters. And there is no statistic provided for the GFA of the basement because typically that's excluded from GFA. But it should be approximately similar to the first floor area, which would be just under approximately 1,000 square feet. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, they're probably on the larger end of what, large condo building units would have, closer to 550, 600 square feet. They're slightly larger units, but.
So actually some potentially affordable housing.
More, through you, Mr. Chair, more affordable than what currently exists, which is a single detached dwelling on a larger lot.
Okay. Because that's often an argument we hear is that what's being proposed is not affordable housing, and it's affordable housing is what the city needs. So that's worth hearing. And we're just confirming that essentially the setbacks on both sides are an improvement over the existing, or is there a driveway on the? I forgot now. Hold on. Well, you're improving the setback on one side.
Correct, Mr. Chair. Through you, there is a driveway on one side.
On the other side, yeah.
So there is a larger setback on that other side.
Okay.
So in that case, on the east side, it won't be an improvement to the existing condition. But again, the semi-detached dwelling was approved for basically the same setbacks as what we're proposing now.
Okay. Is there any parking being provided?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no parking provided.
Okay. So you're really kind of maxing out the land area.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
Seeing as we talked about referring it to the size of the condo, and there's no parking, is there bicycle parking?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe it's particularly indicated on the plans. However, you know, in these types of units, there is space. There's a rear yard area. There's the side yards provided. There's space on the lot to accommodate bicycle parking, and there would also be space within the units to store bicycles as well.
Okay. You know, just, sorry, any other questions or? No? So we're good to take it into committee then? Thank you, Mr. Engelman. Thank you. Just comment, we recently were dealing with a number of garden suites, and that was a fairly new thing, and this is also a fairly new thing, so I guess we're setting a lot of precedents in getting into these decisions.
Did you have a comment, or?
Yeah, my only comment is previously for a development of this many units, the setbacks would be more stringent. I mean, here we're applying single-family, what were single-family standards to fourplexes
Yep.
now, but
Yep.
that's the reality we're in,
That's the
so.
world.
Okay.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as I believe it meets the 4 tests subject to the forestry conditions.
Well, the forestry condition is to refuse.
Refuse, but then didn't they say?
Actually, can I get Mr. Engelman back for a minute? We can come out of committee. Did you get a clearance letter from forestry?
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, and just to address that comment, we are agreeable to. Forestry did recommend standard condition number 3, I believe it was. So we are agreeable to that, and we did obtain a clearance letter related to the previous
For
application.
the previous application, but not for this one.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
So it is really irrelevant.
Okay, and
Correct.
Yep.
And are there any other tree, other than the one that's being removed, are there any other trees on the lot right now, private trees?
My understanding, through you, Mr. Chair, is that the tree in the rear yard is the only mature bylaw regulated tree that would be impacted.
Okay.
And we also, at this point, don't know if it would be injured or removed at this point. It may just be an injury, but I can't confirm as we haven't done the arborist report yet for this updated proposal.
Okay, so it may be appropriate to impose condition 2 as well then. Okay, thank you.
So I'll amend that to forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Okay.
I have 1 and 3. I have 1 and 3.
From where?
Urban forestry. One's a denied or 1 and 3. What does everyone else have?
I only have 5.
I have 5 or 1 and 3.
So the only recommended condition is Article 3, which is private trees. They don't want any other conditions.
Cash in lieu.
Their report only indicates the one condition.
Number 3 is cash in lieu.
They say 3 or 5.
For I don't have that for these 2 items.
But if approved, subject to submitting a permit application to remove or injure.
So in the consolidated memo, they've only checked off box number 5,
Right.
which means that they have an issue. So then when we go to their standalone report,
It's 3.
they've only recommended one condition,
Which is?
the private tree condition, not cash in lieu.
No, number 1 is a city tree.
So you're saying it's number 2 then?
2. So they are asking for condition 2. Okay. Not 3, which they often
To
do.
condition 2,
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve subject to forestry condition 2. Is there a second?
Based on the fact that it is a 7-minute walk to a bus stop, I am going to second that motion.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Rick, are you opposed or in favor?
I was in favor.
Okay, so that's a unanimous approval then. Thank you. Condition 2, yes. Okay, we'll get this straightened out.
Put a slingshot on a tree for the 7-minute walk.
Yeah. Okay, the next item on the agenda is number 20, which is 32 Springbrook Gardens. And
Just for anyone that's still on WebEx or in the room, if you were here for 27 Cronin or 6 Birchlea, those applications are deferred and new notices will be sent out once they're scheduled. Sorry.
oh, they misspelt it? Okay. So, sorry, 32 Springbrook Gardens, which is an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, a 2-story side addition, a single-story rear addition, and there are 5 variances being requested. Forestry is requesting condition 2 in the event of approval, and we have 3 letters of objection on file. And you would be John?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is John Pernarella. I'm the owner and agent of the property. I've owned it since 1998, and I've reached the point in my life where I want to develop the property and make a larger, more suitable home for myself and my family. And I'm here today to address the 5 minor variances that you have before you. And I'm open to answer any questions that you might have of me.
Okay, do we have anyone else online? No?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is on the line, and
And sir, are you here for this item or something else? Okay, perfect.
we have him for item number 23.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's open it up for questions, unless you want to give us a brief overview, up to you.
Well, basically, as my plans show, I'm adding a second garage, and I'm bringing the property forward from where it originally sits. It's in line with many of the properties in the neighborhood. A lot of people have done similar projects over the year. And I originally wanted to start this back just before COVID, but obviously that changed the world for everyone, so it got postponed. And again, here I am before you today.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I do actually. So we received 3 opposition letters. Have you spoken to any of those neighbors? Do you know? Have you
I'm
read
not
those
aware
letters?
of any opposition from any neighbor. I've actually spoken to my immediate neighbors, who all gave me the impression that they were okay with the project and didn't have any objections.
The first letter was from number 28. The third letter, I'm not sure of the number,
There's an objection letter from number 30 as well.
but they have a 2-car garage, which is one of the
Yep,
things
their
that
their
the applicant
complaint
is
was,
asking for.
we got their letter last night, they would like to have the air conditioning moved.
They want the air conditioning removed?
Moved.
Moved, sure.
Relocated.
And 54 Eagle Drive is also chimed in opposition.
Yeah, so there is some opposition or some concern anyway.
Am I at liberty to know what their concerns are
Well,
other than
I
the air
think they're
conditioning?
I think they're on file, so you have access to them.
Okay.
I don't, we don't have time to discuss them right now, but yeah, they're in your file, and you should be able to access them, so you.
They're
Okay.
on the AIC online.
All right. I looked at that. Are these just recently put in? Because I looked at it a while back and I didn't see any.
I don't know how recent they are.
Number 30 is quite recent, 28 is not, and 54 Eagle is also not that recent.
30 was in the additional material.
Yeah.
30 was, they issued it yesterday, April 24th.
but there's no one here to,
No.
to speak to it. I mean, they're basically opposed to everything, according to the.
Are you saying they're frivolous?
I did not say that. I'm just stating what's on the.
It still would
letter.
behoove you, I think, to just take a look at them and you know,
I absolutely will.
maybe take some of what they've said into consideration. You never know. Some of it could make sense.
I absolutely will.
It's always good to have good neighbors.
No doubt.
If no one has any questions, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, thank you.
No decision at the moment, I guess.
No,
So
we're
it'll
just
ha-
going into committee now.
Oh, my apologies. Thank
Wait,
you.
I'd like
No,
to
it's-
make a motion. Yeah,
go ahead.
no other comments? Just checking.
I think we're good.
Okay, good. So I think this application's fairly straightforward. Like you said, there's some neighbor concerns. He can figure that out, though. I think the application meets the 4 tests, and with that, I'd like to move a motion for approval, subject to forestry condition number 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dalton. Is there a seconder?
I will second that motion.
Thanks, Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thanks.
There are no conditions.
No condition. No, yes, forestry condition.
Forestry too, right. Transportation was okay.
Do we need a break or do you want to keep going? Keep on. Okay, item 21 is 78 Dalrymple Drive. This is an application to construct a 2-story rear and west side additions, a detached garage in the rear yard, and to cover an existing deck in the rear yard. There are 3 variances being requested, and we have an opposition petition with 6 names on it. Actually, I take that back. In the last-minute materials, that opposition, I believe, was withdrawn for all 6. Yeah, okay. So, Gabe Ferroni?
Mr. Chair, as you might note on the list, we don't have a proper registrant, but what ended up happening, we did get a message later on. It is in fact Sal Creamy who is going
Okay.
to speak for it.
We're going to
They-
ask that he register next time properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sal
Good
Creamy
afternoon.
is the speaker.
Sal,
Good
are you there?
afternoon, committee.
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay, do you want to just give us a brief overview?
view is an application for a 2nd-story addition to the west, which is over top of the existing attached garage. 2 stories south of the detached garage in the rear yard, of which are creating 3 variances. 1 variance for the yard setback is an existing condition, and the other 2 are minor in nature. And then, yeah, what you saw before with the material, a petition of objection was on file for it. Those 6 addresses this past Sunday. There was a bit of confusion that the proposal was to construct a multi-unit dwelling. We informed all that it is in fact a single-family home for the owners and their family. With that clarification, opposition was removed, and I'm open to any questions the community may have.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So we have on file a refusal recommendation from city planning staff. They note you've made some changes, but they haven't been substantial enough. Can you explain why you couldn't?
Was that for this item?
That's not for this.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong page.
They all look the same.
In that case, if no one has any questions or comments, I'm prepared to make a motion
Go for it.
on number 21.
That's right, thank you.
I believe this application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act and move for approval with no, I don't think,
Forestry is requesting condition 3.
okay. So
Cash
that's
in,
cash in
cash
lieu
in
of.
lieu.
So subject to urban forestry condition number 3.
Okay, is there a seconder? Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Yeah, all in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank
Corona
you.
got me screwed up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Item 23. I do have the right item, right?
Correct, Mr. Chair. Item number 23.
I think we're all getting a
12
little
Moncton Ave.
all over the map here.
And as a quick note, there was a member of the public in the council chambers, but it appears they have since left for this
Okay.
item.
Why not? So item 23, A and B and C, 12 Moncton Avenue. This is an application for consent to sever a lot into 2 undersized residential lots. And there are the resulting variances. A new detached dwelling with an attached garage to be constructed on each of the severed lots, resulting in 3 variances for each of those new dwellings. Forestry was requesting refusal, or in the alternative, conditions 1 and 2. And Jane McFarland, is that the
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
agent? Welcome, Jane.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Jane McFarland. I'm a planner with Weston Consulting, address 268 Berkeley Street in the city of Toronto. My firm submitted the application for consent and 2 minor variance applications for the proposed severed and retained lots. Each of the variance applications requests a variance for lot frontage, area, and FSI. The planning letter that's being shown on screen outlines my justification for how the variances and the severance meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. In quite detail, I've gone through to outline and illustrate and show the committee how the subject property is an oversized lot, and the severance would result in 2 lots which are consistent with the existing lot fabric on both Moncton Avenue and in the area. The property, as you can see on the air photo, is just southeast of the Bloor and Islington Avenue intersection. There's a subway station and a corresponding protected major transit station area just at that corner, which is the Etobicoke Center. So within a protected major transit station area, which proposes a density of 0.5 for that area. I note that this application was heavily pre-screened. We also met with planning staff a number of times on the applications prior to submitting. I note that planning staff indicated no objection to all 3 applications. I note that there is a pre-circulation engineering report dated March 5th as well, which contains some conditions, and I'm happy to have those conditions imposed upon an approval of these applications today. I note that there are 6 letters of support from residents of the adjacent lots on Moncton Avenue. And I do further note the urban forestry conditions, number 1, 2, and 5. 5 being the recommendation for refusal. This is due to one of the boulevard street trees in front of the existing house on the property. Currently, there are 3 trees on the city boulevard just in front of the property. One of the 3 we had proposed to remove in order to accommodate the driveway for part number 1. Since receiving these comments late last week, I have been working with our architect. The existing location of that middle street tree is just on the boundary of the driveway, which is shown on the site plan if we want to illustrate there. That's the tree in question, correct? A coniferous tree. And it's sitting on the proposed boundary of the driveway. However, it looks like we may be able to shift the proposed driveway for part 1. in between two of the trees in order to maintain that tree. I'm still waiting for confirmation from Transportation Services about that alignment, and the revised plan was prepared after the deadline for submitting material back to committee today. However, I'm very happy with imposing condition number 1 and 2 from Urban Forestry, which is to apply for a permit to remove and injure. And that would enable us to work with Urban Forestry on potentially saving that tree. We would still likely need to have a permit to injure, because it's the driveway would be within the tree crown, the tree protection zone of that tree, but I think we can save it. Subject to any further comments or questions from committee, you have my detailed outline of how the application meets the 4 tests. And I really think that this is a good application to provide another single detached dwelling unit on a property that is, a couple minutes walk from one of the major transit stations in the city of Toronto. And that concludes my presentation to the committee today.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. And I negated to comment that Metrolinx also has advisory comments, and Engineering Construction Services has proposed conditions of approval as well as advisory comments. Any questions
Noted,
from
yes.
panel members? No.
My only question is, how do these 2 new undersized lots compare to other lots in the area?
Through the chair, the 2 proposed undersized lots are very similar, both in terms of frontage and area, to existing lots that were created by the original plan of subdivision. That's listed in one of the charts in my cover letter, as well as recent approvals that have been granted by the Committee of Adjustment, which are also listed in another chart in my cover letter.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have another question.
Okay.
Madam Agent, the starting point for my question is that Urban Forestry's initial position was to deny the application with a backup position, if I can call it that, with condition number 2, I believe number 2.
1 and 2.
1 and 2. But what I believe I've heard from you, and I'm looking for some clarification from you, is that you may be able to save this tree or possibly minimally injure. So can you clarify that? The picture's gone now, but it's a substantial tree. It's a very large, I guess, older tree. So to me, that's a big difference, because if you can save that tree, I think that would, in theory, or to a large extent, may address Urban Forestry's concerns and initial position of denial. What, if any, undertakings can you give us that your client would work to, under any circumstance, save the tree or minimally injure it rather than remove it?
Yes, thank you for that comment. And through the chair, I would have loved to come today and said that we have sign off from Urban Forestry and Transportation Services and planning as well, because I don't suspect that moving the driveway would trigger any further variances. But we would need all 3 departments sign-offs for me to say, yes, the tree can be saved. If there's a mechanism that the committee wants to or can add to such an approval to save the tree, I'm happy to put that on there. But without the certainty, I have no way of ensuring that we're going to save that. Hence, the default position would be to proceed with replanting. We would have to replant 3 trees for that 1 removal. If a permit was to be issued by Urban Forestry to remove that. There is sufficient planting in the front yard for at least 2 trees, and we could certainly accommodate the 3rd in the rear yard, or we would pay cash in lieu.
Thank you. The difference being, obviously, this tree's got to be 100 years old. I don't know how trees grow. Madam DST, Is there, the question I think is a fair one by Madam Agent, is there any mechanism to coordinate that to somehow get her client on board with saving the tree?
It's ultimately up to urban forestry because they do have their own policies on what can be removed if you have a permit based on as of right permissions. Excuse me. So they would need to seek approval from urban forestry. Urban forestry is recommending refusal. So they're not supportive of removal.
Well, I think if we impose conditions 1 and 2, I mean, 1 addresses the city tree, the applicant will have to go through forestry to go through their process in order to remove that tree in any case.
I think the issue with urban forestry is once you impose that as a condition, it almost green lights the removal.
Yeah.
It just means they have to get a permit to do it versus not being.
Versus trying to find an alternative.
Is there any mechanism for us to try to encourage that?
The only other mechanism would be a deferral, which I don't think we want to go to at this point. I mean, the deferral then would be for them to address, or, with urban forestry.
They're not asking for deferral, they're asking for refusal. So I think just the severance alone would create the situation.
Is there any other discussion? No.
The fly in the ointment. This particular bungalow is clad in what looks to be like Humberstone, and I'm just wondering if your client has any idea of, whether they're going to find a home for that Humberstone or whether they're going to use it in some other way. I'd hate to see it just end up in the
Landfill?
in the landfill, yeah.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any plans to repurpose. However, I think that, should there be a condition imposed, we could certainly look at that. I'm not an architect, so I don't know, nor a structural engineer, know how that could be incorporated. But I do like that idea from a planning perspective to reuse that material as well, if we wanted to add that condition.
It could even be used in landscaping in the backyard, for that matter.
Exactly.
Anyway, it was just a question.
I have one additional comment.
Sure.
Going back to the tree, I agree with my colleague's comment about reusing the stone. 100% agree with that. Perhaps maybe the takeaway here is that, speaking for myself, possibly for others, there's a concern and an encouragement that we are hopeful I am hopeful, you can relay to your client if there is a workaround to save the large tree and to reuse the stones, that I suggest your client may take a moment to consider that. Because the concern remains, at least for my part, and certainly on the stones issue as well, the concern remains that, if possible, that tree should be saved. That's my comment.
Yes, and through the chair, I completely agree. That's our first position. This recommendation to refuse only came about late last week, so we've had to hustle with a lot of moving parts on this. And as I said, I'm very hopeful and confident that by shifting the driveway, because it's just, an encroachment ever so slightly on that tree, that we can save it. I know that's urban forestry first position, and if they don't grant approval of the tree, you know, we can't build that driveway and that house, and we'd have to find a separate solution to accommodate for that tree.
Thank you.
With respect to the trying to save the stones, any condition we put on would have to be tied to a variance. I don't see what variance we would use.
Well, it wouldn't be a variance, it would be
A condition must relate to a variance.
related to the consent.
But there's no way of enforcing that.
There's no way to enforce
Right.
it, no. I
Exactly.
don't think we can even. It was a suggestion, I mean, sure if we even articulate that in the minutes, but it's been put out as a suggestion. We'll take it at that. Is there any other discussion, or can we go into committee? We good? Okay. Is anyone ready for a motion? So we have ECS conditions, we have forestry, refusal or alternate conditions, and that's really it in terms of what has been asked of us to impose.
Well, with that, I'd like to move a motion. I think the application meets the 4 tests and is appropriate for the sites, subject to conditions in the ECS and the forestry memos.
Okay, so that's a motion to approve the consent and the related variances, and do we have a seconder?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Mr.
Could I
Ross.
make a friendly amendment? I don't think transportation conditions were in there, were they?
Well, ECS includes both.
Includes, okay,
And it said in there also transportation was okay.
okay.
Okay, so all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous approval. Thank you. And that, I believe, is our last item for the afternoon, as the rest have been deferred. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Okay, Ms. Alderson.
Motion to adjourn at 2:40 p.m.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay.
Your estimate was pretty good. Your 3 o'clock was pretty good.
Thank you.